Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user ThrowArrayLXLX. Am I the a-hole for leaving the weekend friend trip after being made to sleep on the couch? I, female 29, and Josie, female 30, have been friends since high school. We live apart but still keep in very regular contact. I was invited to stay with her and her husband, Leo, male 30, for a few days because their town was having a huge annual festival that we were all interested in attending. They had asked me to come early this year. Maybe a month or so before, they informed me they invited some college friends to stay for the weekend as well. I was excited for this because I have only met their college friends a handful of times and I know they are really close. The plan was for me to stay Thursday through to Monday. I should also preface that when Josie and Leo bought their home, I stayed with them for a month while I was between jobs. This was many years ago now, but since it has been dubbed my room. It is obviously not actually mine, but I have stayed in it every time I have visited them since. I drove 4 hours to their place on Thursday. When I arrived, their college friends were there already, and I was shocked to see it wasn't just them. Josie and Leo had invited their friend Shane and his fiancée, and their friend Sarah and her husband. I have met Shane and Sarah before, but not their partners. I was immediately irritated because it felt like a couple's get-together already. I have a partner of nearly 3 years who I live with, Oliver, who Josie and Leo have met several times, and he was not invited on this trip. Anyway, I tried to get over the awkwardness and exchange pleasantries. That was until I went to go upstairs and put my bag away, and Josie and Leo stopped me and told me that Shane and his fiancée were staying in that room. I was like, whoops, my bad, I should not have assumed, and asked if I was in the other, smaller guest room. They said no, Sarah and her husband were in there. They told me then that they hoped I was okay with sleeping on the couch. I was really trying not to be annoyed or cranky about this, but I had just driven 5 hours and was under the impression I was getting a bedroom for the weekend. The thing that bugged me the most is that we had this weekend planned for months and they had never mentioned otherwise. I would not have been opposed to a couch sleep for maybe one night, but there was no way I was going to sleep on the couch for the entire weekend, especially since we'd be drinking and partying pretty heavily. My response was to ask them why they didn't tell me plans had changed so I could get a hotel sooner. They insisted they didn't think I'd have a problem sleeping on the couch. Apparently, Sarah and her husband were planning on getting a hotel but waited too long and couldn't find an affordable one last minute. At this point, I was really irritated, both by the partner situation and the sleeping arrangements. I called Oliver and he was upset for me. We both looked for hotels in the area but couldn't find anything affordable for the entire weekend. I told Oliver about the couples and he was annoyed to not be invited since he likes Josie and Leo a lot. Finally, after like an hour of back and forth, Oliver asked if I wanted to come home and I honestly really did. I privately told Josie and Leo I was uncomfortable by the situation, wished everyone a good weekend and drove back home. I then got a call Saturday morning from Josie and she said she was really disappointed that I had acted so rashly and she wished that I had stayed. I told her I didn't understand why she didn't update me on the sleeping situation as soon as she knew about it, and she told me the only reason I was booted to the couch is because Sarah and her husband both couldn't fit. So then I asked her why she didn't invite Oliver if she had invited the other couples, and she just said sorry they hadn't thought about it. I told her that I was upset and hurt by the situation and I didn't regret leaving. I received another message from her last night saying everyone had left and she was really disappointed in me and that I ruined her weekend because she was upset the entire time. I am starting to feel bad and also fear of missing out from not being there. I had been really looking forward to the festival and hanging out with everyone. Anyway, am I the a-hole for leaving? You're not the a-hole, OP. You were invited as a guest, not a backup plan. Josie and Leo shifted the plans, excluded your partner, gave away your expected room, and didn't even warn you. That's not hosting, that's just being inconsiderate. You didn't throw a fit. You tried to adapt, you asked fair questions, and when it was clear your comfort wasn't a priority, you chose self-respect over being sidelined. That's not overreacting, those are just simple boundaries. Also, fear of missing out is normal, but don't confuse it ever with regret. You didn't leave because you were dramatic. You left because you were clearly an afterthought. They made choices that told you exactly where you stood. You responded with clarity, not chaos. Josie didn't treat you like a friend worth considering, and that's on her, not you. And on that point, all of this spiel by her saying that you ruined her weekend because she felt bad, just know that Josie's guilt is hers to manage and not yours to absorb. You didn't ruin her weekend, she did. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's check out the community comments. Crazy for Swayze 420 says, not the a-hole. Just go to the festival next year with Oliver. Make it a romantic getaway. All I'm going to say is, your friend has an odd way of showing being a friend. Everything about this situation is so sketchy. Invite all couples except you, and it's not like you're single. Sticks you on the couch with no advance notice? That is super sketchy. I'd let that friendship go because it doesn't sound like a good one to hold on to. Immediate Yak 5287 says, not the a-hole. You told her you were hurt and upset and she didn't acknowledge or apologize or anything. Instead, texted you later to tell you that you being upset her and she was disappointed in you for that. Is she always like this? No accountability and wants to twist it back on you? She was kind of inconsiderate and somehow you're the one that ruined her weekend because you refused to be uncomfortable to make her comfortable with her decisions? Datura Rose says, not the a-hole. It sounds like they have 2 guest rooms and you assumed you'd get one. So some of the other commenters saying you should have confirmed are off the mark. Once you found out there was another couple you weren't expecting, your partner wasn't invited and you were expected to spend several nights on the couch, it was your right to leave and you were polite about it. You did ask Josie why she hadn't talked to you before, but it seems like she was pretty dismissive and at that point, after trying to make other arrangements, you left quietly without making a scene. Josie ruined her own weekend by being an insensitive friend. The fact that she assumed you'd just be okay with the couch and with your partner not being invited says a lot to be about how she thinks of you though. She prioritizes these other couples and is now trying to guilt you for not accepting a crappy sleeping arrangement in favor of a couple who couldn't be bothered to plan ahead, and your partner not being included. I think you need to think about that. Additional information from OP's comments. I assumed I had a bed because the original plan was for me to have a bed. When we made the plans back in January, it stemmed from Josie and I seeing the event advertised and agreeing it sounded fun. She invited me to come stay with her for the weekend. Her husband would be there, obviously, but it was definitely meant to be a girls' weekend, which we do at least once a year. I presented it to Oliver that way and he told me to have fun. Josie and I both confirmed I would be staying in a guest room. Shane and Sarah were added to the trip early April, and it wasn't until Sarah and her husband informed them they couldn't find a hotel, which to my understanding was like a week before the trip, that Josie moved around sleeping arrangements and didn't tell me. At no point did Josie or Leo mention Shane and Sarah would be bringing their partners or that sleeping arrangements would be changed. I also would not have had a problem getting a hotel if I had been informed on the sleeping arrangements beforehand. At the point of me finding out, Thursday afternoon, a large majority of the hotels in the area had been booked for the festival and the rooms I could find were at least twice the price they normally were, and no hotel I called had consecutive availability for the weekend. I am sure this is the same problem Sarah and her husband ran into when they tried to book. So basically, I was invited by Josie for somewhat of a girls' weekend, and then eventually Leo invited Shane, I assumed, to have a guy friend, not to be a third wheel, and then Sarah too. The weekend just had the vibe of a bunch of friends getting together. I 100% would have invited Oliver or asked if he could come if I knew Shane and Sarah were bringing their partners. We have been friends for 15 years. I know they are good people. I hate that we are upset with each other. I would really love for us to move past this. OP's edit. As I am reading through the comments, I am untangling some of the feelings I was having. I am upset by being assigned to the couch, especially because it was last minute and I was not told beforehand. An entire weekend of partying with an uncomfortable sleeping arrangement and no privacy really sounded miserable. I am not 22 anymore. But I do think I am more upset about Oliver's exclusion and just didn't piece it together or really held on to the couch as an excuse. It really did feel like it was made into a couple's weekend and somehow Oliver and I were excluded from that. I hated immediately feeling like the seventh wheel. Alright, well, the community agrees that Josie behaved like a really bad friend and that maybe OP should take a look into that, and OP is still very much pissed about the whole situation, particularly about Oliver being left out. So now, let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. I waited until the weekend to call Josie because I thought we could both use the time to cool off and think about the situation. I spent a few days parsing through your comments. When we finally got on the phone, she was instantly apologetic for how the previous weekend went. But before we went further into the conversation, I asked her to explain how we ended up where we did. So, here are the events as she told it. Her and I made plans in January for me to come visit for the festival. Her husband Leo was only interested in like one day's events and wasn't planning on attending with us the rest of the time, so it was mainly a girls' weekend for us. Sometime in March, Leo mentioned the weekend to Shane, his college friend, who showed interest. Josie said it was Leo's idea to invite Shane so he'd have someone to hang out with while her and I were busy with our plans. Josie and Leo told me at this point that Shane would be there for the weekend too. And then, I guess a couple of days after that, Sarah, in the same college friend group, heard about the event from Shane and her husband decided to go as well. Josie at this point told me that their friend Sarah would also be in town for the festival. She did not tell me Sarah was planning on staying at their house because they had originally planned on getting a hotel. Somewhere between Shane being added and the festival weekend, Shane proposed to his now fiancée and then requested she be added to the trip. The Monday before the trip, Sarah and her husband called that they couldn't find an affordable hotel and asked if they could stay with Josie and Leo. When I asked Josie why she didn't just update me on the plans, she said she was feeling overwhelmed by all of the changes and worried that if I knew I'd be now sleeping on the couch, I wouldn't come. She claimed that her and Leo looked for hotels for me but also couldn't find anything affordable. She said she felt bad and understood why I left, but she wished that I hadn't, and that she spent the entire weekend feeling awful. So she did apologize, and I also apologized for leaving abruptly without talking it out. I also felt very overwhelmed by the situation, especially because I barely know Shane and Zara, let alone their partners. Anyway, that's the simplified version of the problem. Now, I also asked why they hadn't thought to invite Oliver. I said that I understood plans changed pretty fast, but there was a decent chunk of time where she knew all the couples would at least be at the festival and she could have at least extended the invite. I said I wasn't buying the excuse that they forgot, especially since she just explained she was kind of purposefully keeping me in the dark in the hopes I wouldn't cancel. Josie admitted that the last time all four of us were together, which was last September, Oliver made a pass at Leo that made Leo really uncomfortable. It was night, we had all been out drinking, and according to Leo, somehow the conversation got around to the topic of Oliver's sexuality. He's bi, and Leo made a comment about never having any sexual interaction with men. To which Oliver responded, "Well, if you ever want to change that, let me know." I got off the phone to talk to Oliver. I know that he would never cheat on me and that he probably meant it as a joke. Oliver said he remembered the night and said it was just a joke because he could tell Leo was uncomfortable with Oliver's past dating men. He said that he didn't think Leo took him seriously. He offered to call Leo and smooth it over himself, but I told him to hold off because I didn't want to make the situation worse. I just told Josie privately that Oliver didn't mean to make Leo uncomfortable and that he was sorry, and she said she'd tell Leo that. So Josie and I are okay, even if things are still a little tense. I genuinely don't know what to do about the Leo-Oliver situation, other than let it smooth over with time. I only see Josie 3 to 4 times a year, and Oliver sees them maybe 1 or 2 times a year, so hopefully the next time we all want to do something, it can just be forgotten? Willoughby, the positive thing here is that you and Josie were able to talk and you cleared everything out. Whatever tension is in between Leo and Oliver right now, like you said, hopefully that can be handled in time, but it was just a misunderstanding. So on that note, here's wishing you the best, OP. Thanks for sharing and take care. And now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance and it's by user Prestigious Promise 20. She thought I was working that day. I was just not at the store. In the early years of being a pharmacist, jobs in my city were hard to come by. I managed to get full-time hours by working for a couple of pharmacist friends at both of their stores. They would work on my schedule together and put an X on my schedule on the days I was at the opposing store. One store was downtown and one was at the suburb I lived in. At the suburb pharmacy, I had a co-worker, D, who would just not wrap her brain around the fact if there was an X by my name, I was in fact working, just at the other store. Multiple times I would have call after call on my cell phone and hang-ups on my answering machine at home because she wanted me to cover her shift at the suburb store when I was already working downtown. Worst thing was my cell phone charged me for every single call, so after the second time of her pulling this, I would get downtown and immediately pull the battery off my phone. This made her angry at me for ignoring her, and we had a tepid relationship after that. Time went on and the suburb stores started expanding their nursing home operations, so I was able to work there full-time instead. I still had a great relationship with the downtown store and they had me keep the keys in case of emergencies. They would occasionally come up and the X would be on my schedule by my name. Sadly, D became the assistant manager and now thought she was the boss of me. Now, downtown pharmacist's daughter was getting married and suburb pharmacist was invited to all the festivities. I got scheduled to work the Thursday before at the downtown store. The X went by my name on the suburb schedule. I was also going to the wedding. I was good friends with the daughter, but missing the Mendy party on the Thursday I was working for her mom. I was on the phone with her on my break one time, and she was saying how sorry she was I was missing it, and I said, "Don't worry, I'll just doodle brown Sharpie all over my hands and pretend I was there when we aren't busy." Now, at that exact week, we were getting new pharmacy software downloaded. Nursing homes are run on a batch system where all the labels are run about 5 days before. Then all the bubble packs are made up during that time and then the actual billing is done on the Thursday for the meds to be delivered Friday. D decided that she did not want the batch to be done and just wanted everything to be processed and made up on the Thursday for just this first week. My technician was freaking out, so I just told her to make up the usual drug cards. Lipitor, Aspirin 81, multivitamin, Altasi, etc. without any patient data just to help speed things along. D overheard and told the technician that she wasn't allowed to do that and this younger generation is just scared of hard work. I panicked a bit because I was the only one of my age, Gen X, as all my co-workers were boomer age or older. I went and checked the schedule. Yep, there's an X by my name. I won't be there for the crap show, but somehow D thinks I am? Why would I tell her any different? Thursday rolls around and at 12:30 my cell phone starts blowing up. It's in my purse in the safe because I don't get a lunch break. Only pharmacist and everyone can hear it. Out comes the battery. I get home after work and they're screaming and swearing on my answering machine. A locum pharmacist worked the morning shift and wasn't instructed to do anything, so everything was left for D when she arrived at 12:30. She had to work late to finish over 500 prescription drug cards. I come in the next day and she's still furious. You said you were working. I heard you talking about the effing Mendy thing. I told her I was working, just not at that store, as evidenced by the X by my name. I learned then that she could eavesdrop on the break room from one place in the pharmacy when she herself was the only pharmacist working at the time. All my breaks were taken in my car after this. So basically what I get is that D wanted you to finish over 500 prescription drug cards, but the ex got her again and she had no choice but to do it herself. Sucks to be D. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.